We know that teaching is no easy job. No one goes into the profession because it's a cushy job with a high-paying salary. Instead, those who turn to teaching are passionate about education and hope to make a difference in the next generation. While there are several upsides to the job, it also means long hours, lots of students, and having to juggle multiple roles. On top of this, some teachers are forced to get a part-time job to make ends meet. With all of these stacked challenges, a large proportion of this workforce has long felt overwhelmed and underappreciated, even before the pandemic hit. According to new research from the consulting firm McKinsey, almost a third of all K-12 educators in the U.S. are contemplating leaving their jobs.
I know so many teachers who work more than one job because they can't afford to live on the wages that they make as teachers. And if you think about how hard their jobs are, and then the fact that they have to be stressed on top of that about how to meet the needs of their families, it's a lot to ask of anybody. We pay teachers, on average, $60-some thousand in this country, and they take care of our young people all day, every day during the week. And it seems inconceivable to me that we can't figure out how to respect them enough for the work that they do and the skills that they have to pay them so that they cannot be stressed about money.
That's Megan Franke, a professor of education at the University of California, Los Angeles. In her position, Franke regularly works with current and pre-service teachers in the Los Angeles area. She sees firsthand how so many schools are under-resourced and how these roles ultimately fall back on educators.
So counselors and social workers and nurses in schools, it's under-resourced in the fact that we have fewer teachers in schools than we need to meet the needs of the young people. I think that it's also under-resourced in the ways in which we think about what kinds of opportunities young people need in order to learn the kinds of things that they need to learn to make their way in society today. I think there's always questions about where money comes from. And I find those conversations to be problematic in the sense that this is the future of our country, right? This is the future of our world. These young people are exactly the people who need our resources the most.
Right now, the system is failing thousands of students and teachers. There's a chronic lack of staffing and pay, as well as increasing restrictions on what's being taught.
This challenge with retaining teachers is not new. There's been teacher turnover in our country at a pretty steady rate, and we were at a teacher shortage pre-COVID. What's happened since COVID is that COVID has made really clear what our challenges are, and we're losing more and more teachers at the more experienced end, right? We used to lose teachers within the first 3 to 5 years. If they made it past 5 years, they tended to stay for a while. We're losing teachers now who have great experience, and we need that experience. But we're losing teachers with great experience, partly, of course, because of resources and pay, but partly because we're making their jobs so much more difficult. We're making their jobs more difficult because we're asking them to close the achievement gap, which is an impossible thing to do because the achievement gap is a result of poverty and racism and structural inequality. We're pushing teachers to not have conversations in their class about civics. We're asking teachers to not talk about race. We're asking teachers, right? So every day, teachers are facing new challenges with how to meet the needs of their young people in class. And when you take away teachers' ability to really meet their young people's needs and you remove the joy in teaching, it becomes impossible for teachers to sustain themselves.
To better understand these struggles, education expert Alexandra Robbins spent the course of a school year following 3 educators in different parts of the country. The first was Penny, a middle school math teacher in the South who's been in the profession for 18 years.
She had won numerous teaching awards, and she was paid $47,000 a year. As one teacher told me, teaching is the only profession she could think of where you could have 2 advanced degrees and still make less than $50K.
Robbins is also the author of the new book, The Teachers, A Year Inside America's Most Vulnerable, Important Profession. She says that Penny not only struggled with a lack of pay, but a lot of school politics that made its way into her job.
The year I followed her, the principal didn't even work it out so that teachers would have any money from the school or the district to pay for classroom supplies. 94% of teachers across the country have to pay out of pocket for their own classroom supplies, and they pay an average of $500 a year. And that's just an example of the way people are putting things on teachers that they shouldn't have to shoulder.
Robbins believes that the public needs to step in and better advocate for teachers. It's not enough anymore to hope that legislators will make changes.
On a broader level, teachers need smaller classes and larger paychecks, and those things are going to help students too. Studies show that students' math and English scores are significantly higher in districts that pay teachers higher base salaries. And then on the broadest level, pay attention to what your community's school board is doing. You don't even have to be a parent to be able to do this. You can be anyone in the community, because school boards are more likely to listen to you for some reason than they are to listen to a teacher. Ask teachers in your community how they feel about what the school board or superintendent is doing, and then testify, email, or start petitions supporting the teacher's stance.
Both Robbins and Frankie recognize that there's still joy in being a teacher, but that things need to change. The current landscape is unsustainable, and it's putting the future generation's education at risk.
Public education is critical in this country, and it's really hard for the public to understand the jobs that teachers are doing. And I think what's interesting is individual folks in this country care about their teachers. They respect their teachers. But when we think of the profession in general, that kind of goes away, right? So my teacher's a great teacher. I'm so lucky to have them. But we don't take that to the level of thinking about teaching as a profession, and how do we think about making sure that we are protecting, respecting, valuing the profession of teaching.
To find out more about this topic and how you can help teachers, visit viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, search Viewpoints Radio on Twitter and Facebook. This segment was written and produced by executive producer Amira Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Gary Price. This segment is brought to you by Lowe's. Hurry and shop the final days of Springfest at Lowe's and get the best values of the season before they're gone. Save big on the Ego 15-inch string trimmer. It was $219, now it's $199. Shop Lowe's today. Valid through 4/26. Selection varies by location, while supplies last. Coming up on Viewpoints.
In the last 2 decades, this century, there has been virtually no change in the gender wage gap.
Why do women, on average, still make 20% less than men? Then,
they revealed to me that my father had not been my biological father, which is something that I had never remotely thought, known, entertained.
The hidden secrets uncovered from an at-home DNA test. I'm Marty Peterson.
and I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.